Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports. I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you are doing?
I'm not reading. I'm just looking at the picture. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everyone, to another great week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host, Matthew Long, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Crest, who will come on here in just a minute. This week, another great show in line for everybody. We will be previewing, because we got football this weekend. We got football in like 2 days. We're previewing the Pac 12 and SEC. So the last couple conferences, and this week I'm not going to have such a long rant. I have a small piece of unsolicited advice for Antonio Brown here for you in just a second. But we're also going to cover the independent schools today. There's really only a couple that's worth noting, and we'll cover those really quickly. So yesterday, it seems that the Oakland Raiders have kind of reached the point to where they're fed up. They really are. Mike Mayock said in an interview that essentially at this point in time we need to know if Antonio Brown is all in or all out. All in or all out says, and I'll translate this. Hey, Antonio, we like you. We wanted you to be a part of this team. We made the moves to make sure that we could get you here like you wanted, get you paid like you wanted, and we think put you in an opportunity to compete. All right? This is what the Raiders have done to this point. Now, they took a chance because they know he's a hard worker. Because he has a strong work ethic. What they didn't know is a lot of stuff that the Steelers have been tucking away and sweeping under the rug over the years. Stuff like this. The helmet issue. Now, I was the first one to come out, defend Antonio Brown. Equipment is a big deal because you can pick and choose which pads, which sort of equipment and stuff you use to a point, and you use what's most comfortable, If you were in a position where you have to reach over your head, or you don't want some bulky shoulder pads that are covering they're the full shoulder pads. You don't want something that's covering your arm up, so you're losing range of motion. If you're having to work and run faster, you're not going to want to wear heavier pads, and a back plate, because you want to be able to move. You want to have flexibility. You want to be able to have the versatility and speed that you're looking for without having to compromise because of equipment that is hampering your speed or your flexibility or your range of motion, et cetera, et cetera. Now, some helmets, a lot of helmets, are different. And you see different things. Now, we can look back over time and recall that there are some helmets that got outlawed that had face masks that are grills, like the Bane grill, that were supposed to look intimidating. Some of that stuff got outlawed for one reason or another. Also, at the other end of the spectrum, you have one that had just one bar. You know, some of the famous punters with their face, with that one bar as a face mask wide open. Now, on the new helmets, to the side, there's a bar that comes down in the peripheral. And in your peripheral vision, it's important, especially if you're looking for the ball. So it's just like getting in, if you've ever been in one of those, in a vehicle that you're backing up in or you're trying to change lanes in, and because of the construction of the car, it adds a huge blind spot or it gets in the way of your vision. And you sit here and think, why the hell would they engineer it this way? It's kind of like that. You can't see those vehicles when you're changing lanes as well or backing up. He can't see the ball as well. I get it. Grievance 1, way to go, man. That's your equipment. You feel comfortable with it. Do your due diligence. Fight for it if it makes sense to you. If it's important to you, fight for it. Definitely fight for it. All for that. All right? Yeah, they shot it down. The first one, they shot it down. They said, no, you got to wear this helmet, this new helmet. It's safer, and it's been collectively bargained. If we say you have to change your helmet, you have to change your helmet. So, a lot of people like the other helmet, and they've changed. Sometimes you have to adjust to things in life. And the league said, if you can find that helmet manufactured as 2010, in 2010, so it fits in that buffer, which he did. However, that helmet still didn't meet specifications, and they said he couldn't wear that one either. So, I'm going to go back to Mike Mayock. He said, apparently they have exhausted all their options, nearly all their options, right? And that's where he issued, called a suggestion, called an ultimatum. Say it's a call to action. Are you all in or are you all out, Antonio Brown? At this point, Antonio, because I know you listen to the show every week, go to practice and wear the helmet that's illegal. Wear the ones, the best of the terrible options that you see in front of you, in your opinion, I guess. Wear that. Show up to practice. Show the work ethic that everybody and you talk about so much. Right? Show that work ethic and be with the team and practice. And maybe let this new helmet grow on you a bit. Work with it. And if you can get your old helmet grandfathered in, because that's the new grievance, is he didn't get enough time to get used to a different helmet. He wanted 1 year. You know, a weaning in period, I guess, of such. You need to go to practice. You need to be with your team. That's what Mike Mayock's saying. That's what your teammates are looking for. This is really what adults expect of somebody that's a part of their team, a part of their place of employment. You know, as part of being a professional, you got to be there. Figure out a way to be there, and then work with the helmet and the other situation that's off the field, outside of practice time. If you're healthy to be there, be there. Because your absence, your actions of not being there speaks louder than whatever reason you say that you're not there. Because it doesn't seem like you want to be there. So that's my unsolicited advice. And I'm going to bring in my co-host. He's the author of the P.K. Frazier novel series. You can get it over on Amazon. Rush over there right now. Don't close the show out. Listen, you can listen to us in the background. Go buy the books, right? He's also the editor for the Cold Hard Truth on Sports Golf section and one of our top contributors for college football, Mr. Kevin Crest. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Let me to respond a little bit to your Antonio Brown comments. Number one, I can't believe we're talking about Antonio Brown because he just has to play football. But a couple of key points. Number one is he did have a year to adjust to a new helmet. The league told them a year ago that we're going to give you a year to.
That's true.
To adapt to a new helmet, right? So that year ran out this month, basically. Secondly, he's putting his entire contract at jeopardy. And when Mike Mayock says, either you're in or you're out, there are some contractual issues that regarding guaranteed money. If he decides not to practice or if he opts out of certain workouts, etc., the team can void the guaranteed portion of his contract. Okay?
Yeah.
And then just cut his sorry ass, and he's gone. Right?
Yeah, because right
his
now
contract won't be guaranteed.
they can cut him right now.
So
Because it's a non-football
he's
injury.
playing with fire.
Yeah, he's already
That's
fallen
exactly
under a
right.
non-football injury when he got burnt with the cryo chamber.
Yeah, he's playing with fire. I think he thinks he has leverage, but Mayock probably recognizes that at this point the team can flip that leverage. And I know he's a talented guy, he's a good receiver, he's work ethic, all that, but he's a pain. He's like a 12-year-old. I mean, grow up, dude. I agree with you, Matthew, 100%. Just grow up and play football. He's getting paid an enormous amount of money. People go to work for $18 an hour and work really hard every single day for $40,000 a year, and they're happy to do it. And this guy is flaunting all that. I don't think he has any support among regular people. I mean, how can he? He's a diva. Not only that, if you go into a cryogenic tank without shoes on, you're just stupid. I mean, you can't fix stupid, and apparently the Raiders aren't going to try. They're just going to say, you're done. So I'm hoping next week that we're talking about the third preseason games, or the ones that really matter. That I guess that's this weekend's games. That actually show us what's going on with the NFL teams, because we've seen nothing so far. We've seen a bunch of second, third stringers. We've seen a couple of rookies that played 3 series. We saw Garoppolo last night.
I've completely
rating of 0.
Exactly.
A zero
but that's the thing. That's
night.
the preseason. The preseason is a 0 for me.
Yeah, but he only threw 6 passes, right?
It's gotten to the point where the starters they don't even start. Well, I mean, as a fan, I don't want to pay money for that. As somebody that's reporting on it, I'm not talking about. I've talked to coaches, I've talked to front office people, and the consensus is that they say give me 2 preseason games and 2 joint practices. We're good. That's it. That's the consensus. 2 joint practices, 2 preseason games are good.
The question, and the question's going to be next year when they start negotiating the CBA is the league going to try to add a 17th regular season game, cut back on the preseason, and then in that case, what are you giving the players? Because I can tell you, as a former season ticket holder for an NFL team, you paid for 10 games. You get 8 because the other 2 are preseason.
And with the international games every year,
the owners fight. Yeah, so the owners aren't going to actually benefit financially, except with the TV package. So they're going to have to negotiate to see if Fox and CBS and the NFL Network and NBC and ESPN, are going to want to come to the table with more money for that 17th game, which will allow them to pay more to the players. So that's a whole business thing, which I think is listen, I'm down for that. I mean, more football is good. I'd like to see more football because I don't watch the preseason. To be honest, with you. It doesn't mean anything to me. You don't garner anything from it, right? You can't. And even I'm not playing fantasy this year for the first time in many years, but I'm going to focus on my prediction blog and some other things.
Gambling.
But the fact is that I don't benefit from the preseason games. Nobody does. You can't tell anything, right? So
only from a scouting side. The only thing you get is really from a scouting side. You get to see some guys in live actions that you couldn't see in a practice. So scouting is really the only thing you get from it. But if you're able to see the practice, you can. Yeah, exactly. From a fan standpoint, there's really not any benefit.
That's nothing from fan perspective. That's for the team, right? I mean,
yeah.
So I don't care what they do. I mean, the fact is, I'm looking at September at September 8th. I'm not looking at anything except September because to me the NFL starts on September 5th, right? It's the Thursday. It's the doubleheader on Thursday. So it's September 5th. But that weekend, that's when we start looking at and by the way, you really can't tell much for the first couple of weeks. Because if you're New England, for instance, they use September. I heard this on Rich Eisen today, and I totally agree with them. They use September as their preseason. So if they go 2-2, who cares with New England, right? Because they're just feeling stuff, and they've done that the past several years. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh my gosh, Brady's done. Oh, Belichick's done. Oh my gosh, they went 2-2. They're done. They're terrible. They don't care, because they're just using it to feel like it's. Now they're in a unique position because they're in a very weak division. They have been for several years, so they have kind of a benefit of having a weak division. Now, if they were in the AFC West, with Kansas City and Denver and San Diego, they might have to take a different tack, right? But they've got Buffalo, New York, and Miami. Last time I checked, the last Super Bowl appearance by any one of those teams was 1991. I don't think they're worried about it, right? They're just not.
No.
So now that might change. The Jets are better. Sam Darnold's better. The Bills are a little bit better. The Dolphins are still a train wreck, but they'll still probably beat New England in Miami because they always do, no matter how good either of those teams are. But so to me, all this preseason talk and Antonio Brown. I mean, listen, I have a lot more time for the guys that are in camp trying hard and not trying to be a diva. The guy's stupid at this point because not only is he stupid with the feet, but he's not being smart about his contract. I mean, hell, if I had $31 million guaranteed sitting out there, I think I'd pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, wouldn't you be trying to make sure that guaranteed stays guaranteed? I mean, so I don't have a lot of time for the guy. I know he's getting a lot of press. I know it's content for us. It's listen, he's great for us, right? For those of us that talk sports, he's great. But my goodness, let's get over this. This has been 3 weeks of just a bunch of constant non-field, non-on the field rhetoric and conversation, and if you're the Raiders, you can't really tell how good you are until Antonio Brown actually gets out there because he's a key component of their off-season acquisition plan. John Gruden needs him out there. And they let Amari Cooper go. They let some people go. So they kind of need to see where they are with them, and they're going to need a healthy Antonio Brown to assess whether or not Derek Carr is going to be their guy going forward. So that, to me, is the bigger impact than all this the shenanigans that he's playing. From an on the field perspective, the Raiders need him in there because Derek Carr's on the fence. I mean, he's in the hot seat. And a healthy Antonio Brown could help him keep his job.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they're trying to do as much as they can.
I want to watch Antonio Brown.
They're trying to do as much as they can going to Vegas, and that's this whole thing is to set up for Vegas. Hopefully, they have a team in place that people are wanting to watch. And with the Antonio thing, I guess. Being in Hard Knocks, they want to add a little bit of drama to it. I don't know. That's the thing is all this stuff could be contrived, and but that's the thing is it's just like it's to the point to where if this is it, Antonio Brown needs to he needs to start adulting a bit more.
Yeah.
He seems like a good father.
Yeah.
He seems like a good father and a good teammate on the field when he's actually there. But outside of that, it just seems like, bro, grow up, man. There's just some stupid stuff. You just got to get out of the way. Just get out of the way of it.
And the Raiders, this is very important. This is a big year for the Raiders because, they have to be able to assess whether or not Derek Carr's their guy, right?
Yeah.
Because, you've got some good quarterbacks coming out next year. I mean, obviously Tua's coming out, Jalen Hurts is coming out. You've got some good guys that could be drafted next year, and they need to assess all of that from a front office position. I mean, Mayock's got to go, well, are we going to have to trade up? And I know they've done a ton of draft picks from the equities, from the stuff that they've done the last couple of years. I'm not prepared to talk that tonight. We were preparing to talk about Pac 12 and SEC, which we'll get to, but. They have a lot of picks, and they can make a lot of moves to see if they can get up in the draft to get one of these guys if they need them.
Yeah,
because they don't know if they need him yet. They don't know what Derek Carr can do. I like Derek Carr. I think he's pretty good, but Antonio Brown seriously it improves his chances. Of getting the team to Vegas with the team. John Gruden has a 10-year guaranteed contract. This is the second year of 10 years. He's going to make $100 million. If they fire him in 3 years, he still has $100 million. So Gruden's playing the long game, right? Gruden's playing the long game. He can afford to. And so we'll see what transpires. I mean, the Raiders are good for the league. It's good drama. They aren't Hard Knocks, which I don't watch. I mean, I get it, but I don't watch it. But I think we'll see. I think it's on tonight, right? They air tonight.
Yeah,
And so they were talking. Yeah, Tuesday they were talking today about a big indication of where the Raiders are with all of this by what they allow to air, because they have final editorial content approval.
Well,
so the Raiders get to the Raiders get
as close as you can to get with the final decision. Yes, they basically say you don't air this part or don't air that part, but at the end of the day, and the NFL is not going to let out stuff that's not good for the league too. So remember, this is NFL Films that is making this. It's not. It's just aired on HBO.
Yeah, but if the Raiders allow something, I think we'll be able to tell a lot by what they allow to be aired. Because the first week they didn't allow anything. They didn't show anything about Antonio Brown. Then the next week they showed him with his kids, and his kids were saying, "Where's Roethlisberger?" And he's like, "Well, he's not on his team. It's a different team." That was kind of funny. That was humorous. Right? It was great. And that's what you're talking about with the kids. And then last week, very little. And then this week, we'll see what happens because if they're posturing, right, if the Raiders are posturing with their fan base to position Antonio Brown in a particular light relative to the organization, they can do that. Because there's lots of cameras. I mean, they're filming everything. And so we'll see about that. But, yeah, listen, what's the old saying? It's a slow sports week. I mean, college football hasn't started. NFL hasn't started. U.S. Open tennis doesn't start till next week. Golf's going to the Tour Championship this week, but there's no Tiger, so that's kind of no Tiger, no Phil. That's kind of right. So what's going on? People are on vacation. People in the Northeast are all at the shore. Right? I mean, there's really not. It's a slow sports week. So guess what? We talk about Antonio Brown, and
yep.
I guess that's okay. Right? I mean, I get it. Yeah, and I'm fine with it. I happen to think he's a fantastic player. I just want to watch him play football and not, freeze his toes off. I mean, I prefer him not to get frostbite on his feet. But if we were talking about him, I'm not sure what we'd be talking about because there is nothing to talk about preseason-wise because none of the players play. I mean, Kyler Murray's played, 4 series, maybe?
If that.
In 2 preseason games?
If that. I was talking.
You can't tell anything from that, right? Right? You can't tell anything from that. Even Jimmy Garoppolo last night, went 1 for 6, 0 yards, and interception. QB rating of 0, and he came out and said, "Well, you can't judge me by a couple of series. I mean, couldn't get any rhythm." How many games do you watch in the NFL in the regular season where it's 0-0 after 10 minutes because both teams are just kind of sputtering? You see it all the time. Well, if all of a sudden the game stopped there, and that's all you had to comment on, you go, "Oh my God, these teams suck." And then 30 minutes later, it's 21-17, and the quarterbacks are in rhythm and things are So that's why this is all. It's because there's nothing else for us to talk about. I mean, there really isn't much else to talk about in the sports world. There's no soccer going on. I mean, I didn't mention soccer on our show. That's dog days, right? You've got the Major League Baseball. You've got the Yankees and Dodgers dominating their league. I mean, there's not a lot of drama going on there. They're actually playing, I think, this week. But other than that, Major League Baseball, this is what they call the dog days. It's hot. There's not a lot going on. There's a lot of home runs being hit. But, there's not much drama until we get into September, and you've got the wild card races are probably going to be fairly intriguing. But there's not a lot to talk about. So here we are talking about Antonio Brown's feet and his helmet. His helmet. When's the last time we talked about somebody's helmet? Right?
Well,
it's been a while.
I guess my unsolicited advice wasn't about his helmet. It was about his actions. Get your ass to the.
Oh yeah.
Get your ass to the table.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I know he's not listening, but if he was listening, I would give him the same advice. Just put on a helmet, somebody's helmet. Hell, I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. gave that rookie kid his shoes. Maybe he'll give you his helmet. Go talk to Odell Beckham, and maybe he'll give you his helmet. Because he's obviously giving away equipment, so maybe he's in the maybe he'll give away that too, and you can go and practice. But so that's my comment. So, but we've got 2 really good conferences to talk about tonight. By the way, the Pac 12 and
before we get into
SEC.
that, there's one thing I did want to say. I was talking with an agent, and what he was telling me is, okay, so the because we talked about the CBA and everything like that, and which is a whole nother area I didn't even get into last week on why this is such a terrible idea for Zeke to hold out on the Cowboys, because if it expires and there's a work stoppage, that doesn't count towards anybody. So it could be, we got 2 years of rookie deal, 2 years of tags, and then you'd have a whole lot. I mean, he could be 5 years still under control. So, anyways, what the league is looking at, because we're talking about coaches are more and more not liking the preseason games. They use whatever they get because they don't get enough time with the players to begin with, in their opinion and mine. But again, the less practices and stuff like that was collectively bargained to even out the hours they put in and working for the money that they're getting. So that's how they collective bargained it out. But the thing is the best ones are training all year round anyways, so they're putting in the work hours even if they're not with the coaching. So really they just kind of suffered with game planning and spending time with their coaches. That's really what it came down to. But what the interesting thing is to see if they do press the 17th game or 17 and 18 to move it to 18 regular season games, because they already extended the playoff. They added a team to the playoffs. So, and that's been a couple years now. So adding regular season games, because they've flirted with the idea, because they're coming into this new CBA, which expires in I think it's March 7th, 2020. The end of the year for the NFL year is it's right around March 7th, March 10th, something like that. So once that new year starts, there's no CBA, so they have to start collectively bargaining it all over again. It's in the process now. The lawyers and stuff are starting to work together, and they're trying to figure out what their position is on stuff. But what they're gonna, it's something that'll be probably negotiated in. And the owners, some of the owners are adamantly against expansion teams. But the other thing that the league has looked at, and Monday Morning Quarterback actually did a piece on it, which cities would deserve the newest NFL expansion team. And over the next 2021, somewhere between 2021 and 2030, we'd probably see 2 new teams introduced into the NFL. And the thing is because they're looking to push more revenue. And how do you get more revenue? If you just add 2 games to the schedule, I mean, there's 32 teams. So that's only 64 more games. Whereas if you add 2 teams, your multiple is there, and you still have the 18 games. So you're getting 18 games out of every regular team plus 2 more teams. So it adds an exponential amount. And they could be just looking at 2 preseason games, which is kind of the direction coaches are wanting. So that's what I think the league's looking at. Okay, we're going to give them what they want. We're going to give them the 2 preseason games. We're going to get 18 regular season games. We added an extra team to give more opportunity to win a championship. And we're going to add teams to add more opportunity for people to play in the league. Because with the XFL coming in, with all these spawn-off leagues trying to come in and vie for position.
Let me correct you. Yeah. But two more regular season games is 32 more games, because you got 2 teams in each game, so it'd be 32 more games for television if you had 2 games. It'd be 16 a week, right? So, but. Yeah, I agree, and but remember, London's in play here. I mean,
yeah, you're
London
right.
is really in play.
You're right.
I
just doubled the number of teams. You're right.
Because you're already playing. You're already playing 3 or 4 games a year in London, right? So London is in play.
That's what the fans are asking for. They're saying, "Hey, I'm losing a home game every year, or every 3rd year to London, or to Mexico, or Toronto, or Beijing, or wherever the hell you want to put the games at." And that's the thing is,
and if you put
Toronto is one of those
if you put
cities.
London,
Just looking in this
another one.
this article,
Yeah.
So they're saying Austin, Montreal, Toronto, Portland, San Diego again, Oklahoma City again, and they have it as the Quad City, which would be located somewhere in Davenport or Better Dwarf, Iowa. So they're trying to attract people from.
That one.
Yeah, they want Iowa. That's what this is, Quad City. And then there is.
What are you going to play in a cornfield? You're going to play in the field of dreams? Is that what you're going to do? Just put like bleachers up? And I mean, come on.
If you build it, they will
There's
come.
not enough population in that region to come on. There's no way. I mean, I know they're floating these ideas, but
Bismarck.
It takes a lot to support an NFL
Bismarck,
team.
North Dakota.
I mean, it really does.
Anchorage.
Oh,
This is the article.
I'm
saying this is stretching it.
Yeah.
What I would do is so
Yeah,
here's the top
your
cities I would say. Toronto, clearly. San Antonio, yes. San Diego, it depends. If they're willing to build a stadium, obviously
London.
a smaller stadium.
No, they're going to London.
London.
They're going to London.
Mexico City.
They're going to London. So, I mean, I'm not sure with Mexico City. I think there's some issues with. There's just some issues with Mexico City, but I think they've had trouble with that stadium, but maybe San Antonio. But you've already got two teams in Texas. I mean, that's a. San Diego. They wouldn't, but they wouldn't build a stadium for the Chargers. Why do you think they're going to build one for an expansion team?
Well, that's the thing is
right?
They were willing. They were willing to build one for the Chargers. They were going to, but the Chargers said we're leaving anyways.
Yeah, well, I like London and Toronto because I think when you look at the U.S. market, and I know you mentioned some cities, Austin, for instance, but Austin sits right between Houston and Dallas. I mean, why would you go there? That doesn't expand the NFL's market at all. All it does is cannibalize the Texans and the Cowboys. It doesn't bring anything new. London and Toronto.
Well,
although Toronto's 3 chicken wings from Buffalo. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I mean,
so a case study.
You know what I mean? It's
the NFL's. I read one of the NFL's case studies, and essentially the weird thing about the NFL is because they look at market density. How likely would a team be viable in this community? The crazy thing is, NFL is just as viable in Lincoln, Nebraska, as it is in San Antonio, Texas, as it is in Las Vegas, so most cities are viable options for the NFL because their fan density is enough. What they're looking for is the accommodations for people to travel to there. Why the hell do people want to go to these places? Iowa, some of these places are completely off the map in my opinion because they're not getting enough people traveling to there. Green Bay works because Green Bay was one of the first teams. They've been around forever. They kind of have hugged on for dear life. It's a very small market.
That's just not. They're just not representative of anything. And plus, that's a publicly owned team now, so that's not representative of anything we're talking about. I mean, Green Bay is just not, representative of what we're talking about. I think the league has clearly shown that they want to go to London by all the games they've had there. Listen, London to Boston and to New York is closer than Boston, New York to San Diego. So you stick a team. You and I talked about this last year. You stick a team in London, you put them in the AFC or NFC East, right? And they're right there. Now they're going to have to probably make 3-week road trips. Like if they play let's say that they're in the AFC East, they have to play the AFC West as one of their teams. They're going to have to probably play those two road games back to back and just stay on the West Coast, because two of them will be on the West Coast and two of them will be in London, right? So I think that I believe that London is one of the two teams. So now we say, where's the other one? Where's the other one to go? Because you got to get a second one. You can't do this crazy thing like Major League Baseball did with unbalanced, with 30 American League teams, that kind of stuff. So where does it go? And I understand all the density stuff, but Jerry Jones is not going to vote for a team in Austin, Texas.
Hell no.
And he's pretty damn powerful. Oh, hell, he's not going to do that.
Oh, and
that's
the thing is,
people are coming from.
People are talking about this, and I don't want to get into the political situation and stuff, talking about the Jay-Z and Kaepernick. I don't want to. I mean, if you have an opinion you want to talk about it, I'm not getting into the weeds on that. But
I'm ready for college.
They're saying that Jay-Z is interested in ownership, but who isn't? And if something comes available, that's why he's trying to do this partnership. But they think it's a conflict of interest for him to work on the event side. But that's the thing is, Jerry Jones has legacy events, who has been a large, is the reason that the San Francisco 49ers got the new Levi Stadium. The reason that the Raiders are going to Las Vegas, and that they were able to get a stadium there. So, he's been a big part of a lot of teams in the league. And just the way that he's done, seeing the Star, that facility, oh my gosh. It's not even, Jerry's World's one thing, but they have the separate practice facility, and they have everything you'd want there. Gyms, like you can
the whole deal, yeah, exactly.
It's tremendous.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, let's talk about St. Louis for a second.
Oh, they're suing.
They lost the Rams.
Did you see that they're having another lawsuit against the St. Louis Rams fans are suing from 2010 to last year. I think it's last year, or year before last, for reimbursement, which is about $26 million in fan apparel, tickets, yada, 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 because the team had made the fans think and that they were going to stay long term, but they told people in the corporate and box seats and stuff like that they would have a buyout clause and they would get a prorated amount whether they stay or left.
Yeah, the fans
Good
have
luck.
no standing in that case, right? I mean, that's going to get dismissed in a heartbeat. They have no standing. Oh, so they bought a jersey. Come on. You know what I mean? That's like suing Coke because you bought a bunch of Mr. Pibb and they discontinued it and you can't buy it anymore. I mean, no, you don't get a vote.
Wait, well, hold on. They discontinued Pibb?
I'd be surprised. Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could get a favorable judge and maybe whatever, but yada yada. But St. Louis is listen. The NFL has historically gone back to markets that lost teams. St. Louis was one of those teams. They lost the Cardinals, and they put the Rams. Then the Rams moved there. They've lost the Rams. Cleveland lost the Browns. They put the Browns back. So and that is a rabid sports market. I mean, the Cardinals are an amazing franchise in baseball. So, St. Louis is in play. Oakland is not, I don't think, because that stadium's a pit. They're not going to change it. And the 49ers right across the bay. So I don't believe that Oakland will ever get a team again. Al Davis moved him out, moved him back, and now Mark Davis moved him out again. I think that's kind of done. That's kind of it for Oakland. But, Toronto, they've got to get a new stadium. They're playing in a 30-year-old stadium, the Argonauts play, where the Toronto Blue Jays play. I've stayed there. I watched the baseball game from my hotel room. It's cool, but it's dated.
Is it really?
Kind
of like the.
I don't even think the roof works anymore. The retractable roof. I'm not sure it works anymore.
They just changed the word. It said retractable roof here, and they just changed it to dome.
Well, yeah, it's just totally closed now. It's just a dome. Okay, but it was really cool. I went to stay at the Marriott. I was giving a talk back in my business days, and this was back. The SARS epidemic. So nobody was traveling internationally because of the airline travel risks, and I got an upgrade to a room on the baseball field, and the Pirates were playing the Blue Jays. I opened my curtains and I'm watching the baseball game. It was really cool. But Toronto's going to need to build a new stadium because that stadium is dated. It doesn't have all of the amenities. True, it has a hotel next to it, but when you look at what they're doing in Los Angeles and in Vegas and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta and the new stadiums, all the luxury. Levi Stadium in San Jose, where the Niners play, one side is entirely suites. It's entirely suites. There's like maybe 10,000 seats on that side of the stadium. Everything else is suites, corporate suites. So that's the new business model. So you've got to look and see where you're going with that kind of stuff. And even Lambeau Field has been extensively remodeled over the last 10, 15 years, right? They've taken some stadiums. Soldier Field in Chicago, they rebuilt it.
Yeah,
they left like one side of it, right? But they tore it down and rebuilt most of it. And so you have to look at that factor too. I'm not sure the league is sold on moving beyond 32 teams. Is such a nice number. I mean, it's 8 times 4. It works out so well for the math. They've got this really cool thing going on. And if they could add an extra game or two and not add any teams, and then give London a game every week, right? Because now you got an odd number of, right? You got an odd number of home versus away games, and you tell everybody's playing in London.
Well, that's the thing is, so on the
everybody
broadcast,
plays a game in London.
On the broadcasting side, what they're looking at is they know that Google, Amazon, Netflix, Disney from the side of Hulu, ESPN side of it, not necessarily just ESPN.
HBO.
Yeah,
HBO.
Well,
they're all wanting to add content,
thing is,
right?
CBS now, since CBS and Viacom merged back together, because their idea of splitting and stock going up didn't work.
Yeah.
So they're back together again. So that's the thing is but the thing is, besides the broadcasting side, the broadcasting companies, it's the tech companies. That's really who they're pushing for. Yahoo, Twitter, these tech companies, because the tech companies just have so much more. It's like having a multi, like somebody that's worth, $800 million and somebody that's worth $12 billion. And that's the thing is they're trying to get into the content side, and the NFL is the most consumed content from August to basically March. So that's the thing is that time they can. It's just huge, so they can pay.
It sucks air.
Yeah.
I mean, listen. The PGA Tour changed their entire schedule to stay away from football. They finish this weekend. The PGA Tour season is over Sunday. They don't have to compete with football.
It's a smart move.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it was a smart move. It was a very savvy move. Very savvy move. And it served them very well. The ratings are really good because they're the only game in town. Unfortunately, Tiger didn't make the Tour Championship because he had to withdraw from the first week of the playoffs. But you still got some very compelling guys. So they recognize that as well. So I'm not sure the NFL has to expand to cities as much as expand the schedule, because if they do expand the schedule, that in essence could give London a quasi franchise. You could just tell every team their 17th game is in London, and they don't give up anything. They're still playing their 8 home games, and they're whatever.
Yep. So
right, and they get gobs of money to go to London.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out, and with the collective bargaining agreement. So let's go ahead and we're gonna move into college football. So I want to welcome everybody and thank you for listening over on Blog Talk Radio. If you're listening over on the Spreaker app, I say Spreaker's the best way to listen because you can listen to the whole 3 hours unabated. First 2 hours on Blog Talk Radio, and then we go into overtime. Also, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can find us anywhere at the CHT on Sports, thechtonsports.com. So this week we are previewing the Pac 12 and the SEC, and then we'll get into a couple meaningful independent schools. But the beef of it's going to be the Pac 12 and, of course, the Southeastern Conference, the SEC. So what just came out this past week is the preseason Associated Press Top 25. So week 0, leading the poll for the first time in Clemson's history with 52 votes is the Clemson Tigers. Now, I know I saw a statistic today.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Yeah, I'm shocked.
The statistic, there's actually only been 2 teams in the last, 2 decades that have actually that won a national champion starting the season at number 1. And Alabama clearly was one of them. So, number 2, Alabama, they got 10 first-place votes. Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, Florida, which is interesting and we'll get into. Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon. Number 12, Texas A&M, Washington, Utah, Penn State, Auburn, USC. The only group of 5 team in the top 25 is at 17. Michigan State at 18, Wisconsin, Iowa, which looks like they said, hell, let's just put the whole Big Ten at the end. Iowa, Iowa State, Syracuse, Washington State, Nebraska, Stanford. And the first 2 teams looking on the outside are Missouri, who high hopes are for Missouri this year, which I'm going to get it a little bit more into because of a particular transfer that they got, and Army. I'm hearing a lot of people that are really high on Army this year, which is, of course, an independent school. So, obviously, we don't put a lot of weight on the rankings in the sense that this is how it reflects how good a team is. But, however, these polls do correlate and do affect how they end at the end of the year if they're able to not lose, basically. Because if those top 4 or 5 teams don't lose or win impressively, will stay there, and that's your teams. So, I mean, those top 4 are the same. The top 10 is the same in both polls.
I disagree. Well, this isn't the BCS era where the polls dictated the BCS rankings. The College Football Playoff Committee is going to make their own assessment regardless of the polls. I mean, and they have different from the polls. I mean, we read that list there, and I'm going to pull it up here in a second because the polls differ greatly from the power rankings that we've been using. I know you look at Phil Steele. I look at Lindy's. I mean, there are teams in the top 25 that don't even show up in. I'm looking at the preseason polls. Like Penn State is ranked in like 14th and 15th, but power-wise by the publications are in the high 20s, and so we've got there's some real disparity between who's in the top 25 on the rankings, and a lot of that's based on name recognition and what they've done in the past, and not necessarily on what exactly happened with their roster and their schedule. Now, me, and I think our audience knows, I put a lot of weight on the schedules because I look at where teams are going to be at the end of the season, not where they are right now, right? And they can be a really good team, but their schedule can be either really easy. They could be like a mediocre team, and their schedule could be easy, and they could rise up, or they can be a really good team, and their schedule is so hard that they just can't get enough wins. And we're going to talk about a few of those teams tonight because the Pac-12 and SEC are full of teams on either side of that equation there. Okay, and so let's dive into the Pac-12 North first, if you don't mind.
That's where I was
which
going to go.
Is, by the way, by my assessment, the third most difficult division in all of college football. Okay, it is stacked. Okay, now you read the rankings, which actually the Pac-12 North teams are all in a lot of the publications I looked at. So they've got Oregon. They have Washington. They have Washington State and Stanford. 4 teams in the top 25 in just that division, which is, by the way, a 16 division. 4 of the 6 teams in that division are in the top 25 by almost everyone's standard. Okay? So that is one tough division. It's the third toughest division, as I said, behind the SEC West and the SEC East. And I know all the SEC haters are going to go, oh my gosh, here we go on the SEC train. But I have actual objective numbers to back this up. But when you have 4 of your 6 teams in the top, in this case, 23. Let's just use the coaches poll, but in Lindy's as well, which I use, they have 4 of the top 25. That's one tough division. And so it's going to come down in the Pac-12. It's going to come down to who you play in the other half of the league. And the only really tough team in the South, the Pac-12 South, is Utah. Now people will say, okay, USC, but USC for the first time in many, many years isn't ranked.
I saw one person's preseason top 25 that put him in 25, but
okay.
Vegas is only giving him a 7.
Yeah,
they're over under 7.
Yeah, but and let me tell you why part of that is their schedule. And of course I do it. I'm getting ready to publish this in the next couple of days, Matthew, on your site and my site. Is my rundown of each division. But in terms of overall schedule, okay, USC has the toughest schedule in the country based on the rankings of the teams that they play. Okay, they have the average ranking of their opponents is 37. Okay, that's the average ranking. They play 5 teams in the top 25, and the top opponent they play is Notre Dame, who's by the publication I'm using, which is Lindy's, is they're ranked 9th. Okay, their non-division schedule inside the Pac-12 is 12th in the country. Okay, but in terms of the Pac-12, it's the second hardest non-division schedule. Okay, the division schedules are all balanced because they all play each other. Okay, that's why I don't focus a lot on that. But USC, even though they're trying to make a comeback, they have a brutal schedule. And guess who's second in the country in the schedule is Stanford in the Pac-12 North. Their non-conference schedule ranks, their average ranking of their non-conference opponents is in the top 20. All of them are in the top 20. So when you look at this, and UCLA is third, by the way. So the top three overall toughest schedules in the country are all in the Pac-12, which is why we're going to talk about them first. Okay, and Colorado is fifth. And they're not going to be a player because they're not that good, and their schedule is absolutely brutal. It's brutal for a team of their caliber. Okay, and so when you try to look at teams in the Pac-12 that can compete for a national championship, for instance, you have to look at Utah. Okay. And the reason I look at Utah is because Utah has a fairly benign non-conference schedule. They play BYU, but they'll probably take care of them. And that's kind of it. Their non-division schedule within the Pac-12, they dodge Oregon. Okay, so Utah does not play Oregon, which is by my publication, the highest rated team in the Pac-12, but by some they're behind Washington. Okay, so Utah dodges Oregon, which is a huge advantage to them. Okay, and Utah plays the Pac-12 South, which they're the only team. Utah's the only team ranked in the top 25 in the Pac-12 South, and so you have to look at these schedules. I think last year we had this discussion, and I think we talked about Utah last year. They ended up, going to the championship game because it was the same thing last year.
Yeah, they're definitely a dark horse,
right?
And a lot of people sleep on them too.
By the way, Utah also does not play Stanford. So Utah doesn't play Stanford or Oregon from the north. So they play basically 4 of the bottom 5. The Pac-12, they play 5 division games and 4 non-division games because there's only 12 teams, and they play 4 from the other division. So they dodge 2 of the top 3. Okay, they dodge Oregon, and they dodge Stanford. They do play Washington. They do play Washington State, but they also play Oregon State and California, which are the 2 bottom teams in the other half of the league. So when you look at a team, and I'm talking nationally now, I mean, Utah could run the table. Okay, they could run the table.
And Arizona State is at
4.
home. I think that's Arizona. So Arizona State, Washington State, those are home games. You could argue that those are
at home. Those are home games.
They're 2 toughest games.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they have to travel to USC. We'll see. They do go to Washington. Okay, they do have to go to Washington because you can't dodge them all because there's 4 ranked teams in the North. So you got to play at least 2 of them because you can only not play. You play. 4 of the 6. But their schedule, their non-division schedule, is about as weak as it could get. Given the league, right?
Yeah.
Given what they have to work with, and so I have to look at Utah. Now, that's in the South. In the North, Washington is the team that and Stanford actually has a pretty good non-division schedule as well. Those 2 teams do okay, but the thing is, the North against the South is always going to be easier because the South doesn't have that many good teams. So when you're looking at the Pac-12 North, you have to look at where they play their games, right? I mean, who's where are their tough games? Oregon, for instance, has to play at Stanford and at Washington, which is why I do not pick them as the winner in that division because they have to. Their 2 toughest games are on the road. Okay. Washington hosts Oregon, hosts Washington State, hosts USC, hosts Utah. So my pick in the North is Washington, just based on the schedule. Now, I believe the only team that could emerge out of the Pac-12 to get to the playoffs is Utah. Because I think the other team's schedules are too tough or too hard. I don't see a Pac-12 North team running the table, right? Because they're going to beat each other up. You've got Washington, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon. They're all going to beat each other at some point. I don't see anybody that powerful that they could run the table. Utah could go 11-1, win the Pac-12 championship with 12-1, and probably get into the playoffs because their schedule is just hard enough that they could probably get consideration by the committee. Plus, their non-conference schedule is a piece of cake.
And that's the thing
so Utah is benefiting.
The thing is, the Pac-12, you have to have basically an undefeated conference champion to have a sniff at the playoff with 4 teams. The committee has never really held them in such high regard. And that's the thing is, Oregon, I think Oregon has the best offensive line in the Pac-12. I know they returned 10 guys on offense, 7 on defense, and they've made some changes on defense to more of an attacking style of defense. So hopefully that does some more for them. But that's the thing is that the Big 12 and Pac-12 are notorious for the what they call lack of defense. But I think that they have, if they can run the table, one of the best shots. They started off the year with Auburn. We're all going to learn what to expect from Auburn and what to expect from Oregon in week 1. That's a big boy move on both parts. But trying to find out
the loser of that game, is essentially done from a national consideration.
Oh, absolutely.
The rest of the schedule is so hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Maybe not done with with Auburn. They're done for the season. I think they would definitely be done because even in conference, and we'll get more to them here in a minute. It's not a cakewalk for them either because they got Texas A&M, they got Alabama every year. They go up against the bulk, the toughest division in the SEC. They're in the West, so.
And they played Georgia.
And they played Georgia this year too.
They played Georgia. Okay, we'll get them in a few minutes. Yeah, let's stay in the Pac-12 because Auburn's very interesting. And listen, the scheduling within the SEC is very unbalanced this year. Okay, and Auburn's part of that. let's finish with the Pac-12 because we can spend a lot of time in the SEC.
Now,
we probably will.
kind of speaking
But,
of that former SEC, yeah, Utah, I agree, but I think the team that I really need to see the most out of this year, I think Arizona State is going to continue on that trajectory, and I don't know if what we see last year is what we can just accept moving forward. 8-9 win team, they're going to be competitive. It's going to help, give some sort of buoyancy to that conference. But I want to see what Arizona does. They have the Khalil Tate, he's a good quarterback. I want to see what they do with him moving forward because Arizona has some guys that are a big part of the Pac-12. So on offense and defense. So and there's quite a few guys over on the defensive side. The linebacker Colin Schooler, that guy's in pretty high regards in many NFL circles. So Arizona's going to really have to make a move with Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Well, but their problem's the schedule. Okay.
Well, they start off in Hawaii, then Northern Arizona, then they got Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Then a bye week, UCLA.
Yeah, let's look at who they have to play in the North. Okay, this is the whole thing that's important in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And yes, they play Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they're going to run up some points on them, but they have to play. They play Washington, at Stanford, and at Oregon. Now, okay, those are three of the top four teams in the North. Two of them on the road. And Oregon's a very hostile place to play. Okay, and their rivalry game, they end the season playing Utah. They host Utah and then play at Arizona State. Listen, they play at Oregon, home against Utah, at Arizona State to end the season. Boy, that is a rugged road. Listen, I agree with you. I think though that you mentioned Arizona State. Arizona State's schedule is far more favorable than Arizona's. Okay, number one, their non-conference schedule is non-existent. Arizona plays Texas Tech.
Outside of Michigan State,
virtually nobody. Arizona State does travel to Michigan State. Okay, but within the conference, Arizona State has a little bit of a break. They play Washington State instead of Washington. Arizona does. They do play Oregon, but they play at Oregon State, which is that's going to be a cakewalk. And they play at Cal. They play at Cal instead of playing Stanford. So I agree. Herm Edwards, I love Herm Edwards. I love that guy. I loved him in ESPN. I loved him when he was a player. I loved him when he was a coach for the Jets. So he's going to benefit if Arizona State's going to do something. Take a big leap. Above their 7-6 record last year. This is the year because their schedule is favorable. They can go 9-3. They can go 9-3, and they'll upset somebody, but they can go 9-3. They're going to get Michigan State early in the season. They beat Michigan State last year in the desert, and so this is the back end of the home and home. They travel to Michigan State. We'll see what happens, but I really like Utah. I like Washington. I guess I'm just not sold on Oregon. I don't know why, Matthew. It's kind of a gut thing. I just don't think I think they're overrated. I just don't think they're quite there yet. Do you know what I mean? They were pretty good last year. They were 9-4 last year. That's a good record. Beat Michigan State in the bowl game by 7-6. That's not impressive. But I think their defense is vulnerable, and I'm just not sure they're gonna be all the way back. But I could be wrong. That's a team that I think can go either way. But I still like Washington, and I definitely like Utah. Utah in the South, I don't think it's going to be challenged. I think they're going to win the South. Maybe Arizona. Maybe Arizona State can give them a little bit of a tussle, but they host Arizona State, and Utah's a tough place to play. It's got some elevation there in Salt Lake City. It's a tough place to play. So we'll see, but that's kind of my. Arizona State, once again, they beat Utah last year, but it was in the desert. So playing in Tempe is different than getting out of Tempe, and playing someplace else. But I do like your Arizona State call. The dark horse, because the schedule I think is favorable. We haven't talked about UCLA.
Is that a requirement?
Second year to Chip Kelly. No, to talk about UCLA?
Yeah, I did.
No, but I can spell it. I'm good at spelling it.
All right.
That's the thing.
Not the acronym. Spell the whole word.
But they could be another one. They don't. They dodge.
Their over under is 5.5.
Some of the toughest schools. Yeah, they dodge some good teams, but
and they start off.
Chip Kelly can he
on the road at Cincy
like he did it.
San Diego State, who they look like they should be pretty good this year. They've built a strong program there. Their over under is 8. Then they got Oklahoma. We could.
Yeah. UCLA has the
Washington
the
State at Arizona
non-conference schedule.
Oregon State, there's win 1.
Yeah.
Stanford. Maybe.
UCLA actually has. UCLA actually has the second toughest overall schedule. Excuse me, third toughest overall schedule in the country, behind Stanford and USC.
And what? This is where they tell them, "Hey, do you want to play right away?" That's what this advertises. Come here, get national recognition because we go places. We'll travel the whole country, but you'll get to play right away. Clearly. So,
they're gonna have a Thursday night. Week from Thursday at Cincinnati. We talked about this in our opening preview show about the AAC and how they're taking on some teams. We mentioned the Cincinnati-UCLA game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a statement game for both teams. Okay, can Chip Kelly come out of the chute? If UCLA happens to beat Cincinnati and then beat San Diego State, they're going to be hosting Oklahoma at 2-0 with a lot of confidence, and it can happen, right?
Absolutely.
And Oklahoma has to go out to Southern California, play in the Rose Bowl. That'll be an interesting football game. I'll be watching that one. That will be one of those circle games for week 3.
Yep.
Is UCLA
get your
hosting Oklahoma? Not only that,
get your beverages and popcorn ready.
Tradition, man. Yeah, but just the tradition, man. The UCLA, the baby blue and gold against Oklahoma, and It's just those two programs. When I was a kid, anyway, UCLA was really good, and Oklahoma's always been good. But just to be watching that game out on the West Coast with that bright Southern California sunshine, that's going to be something. By the way, those are the two schools that Troy Aikman played at. By the way, just a little bit of a
trivia there.
Bit of trivia out there.
And there's your sports trivia for tonight.
Well, in Oklahoma drilled UCLA last year, 49-21.
Yes.
There's going to be some revenge in the Bruins that game. So, but UCLA.
There's not going to be any revenge.
That's one of the as I said. I don't think they're going to win.
There's no revenge. Unless, cheap shots maybe, or pranks maybe. I don't know. But they're not on the field. There's not on the scoreboard at least.
Well, I've got to give the Bruins credit, though. Like I said,
if you have to.
Second toughest non-conference schedule in the country. Listen, I've got to give the Pac 12 kudos for they actually play a non-conference schedule. We're going to get to the SEC here in a second.
And 9 conference games.
The biggest knock against the SEC. What's that?
And 9 conference games.
Yeah. Yes. So that's why when you look at the toughest overall schedules in the country, 6 of the top 12 are in the Pac-12.
Yep.
Overall schedules.
Well, I'm
toughest overall schedules. The rest are primarily in the Big Ten, by the way. Okay, because we talked about.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. So
overall schedules.
If you want to hear more on that, definitely head on over to Spreaker or to Blog Talk Radio and check it out from last week. You can, I know it's tweeted out. It's actually pinned at the top of Twitter at the CHT on sports.com and the CHT on CFB.com. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and go to the phone lines and welcome in two of our other top contributors for college football, and welcome in James Bell and Mike Brewer. How are y'all doing this evening?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It was good.
So you're out there in California, Mike, in Sacramento. Arizona State starts off with, the school that you literally go to every week and watch, Sacramento State. What do you think of the Pac-12? Arizona State, would you classify them as the dark horse or the team that adds a bit of that continuity to the conference?
I was listening to you guys' analysis. I think this is going to be a down year for the Pac-12. You got a lot of schools that are kind of in that transitional phase to where they might do better next year. Arizona State's an interesting school, though. They have the players in place. They got a good coach. And one of the big question marks is going to be at the quarterback position. They just named Jace Daniels the start quarterback, and he's going to be a true freshman. Now, I saw him in high school. He went to high school down in Southern California, and he put up some bonkers numbers down there. I mean, just insane. I think he threw like 60 touchdowns or something his senior year. But it wasn't that strong of a league. But like I say, he has a kind of build. He reminds me of like I don't know if you remember Dennis Dixon when he was at Oregon, but he reminds me of a Dennis Dixon kind of guy. Might not be the best arm or the fastest, but he can put them both together. And he's kind of slender build though, and that would be the one thing I would say about him. I don't know if he's over 200 pounds. But like I say, they got a true freshman. But like I say, we've seen in the past that true freshmen and redshirt freshmen with Tua and Trevor Lawrence, I mean, they can lead your team if depending on the guy. It's just those guys are different kind of guys. So I mean, like I say, I like Arizona State.
Yeah.
Like I say, I mean, they have a chance, but I mean, it's gonna be tough. I think like what you guys say, you'll see a lot of who these teams are gonna be. And you guys said that earlier. You're gonna see a lot of who these teams are gonna be in their first couple of games. You mentioned Oregon, and playing Auburn. Oregon, they bring back Justin Herbert. I think it's his name, Herbert. But he's he was a guy, who everybody was thinking going to be a first round pick, maybe number one pick quarterback. And they bring back a couple of pieces on their on their offense. They got Kayvon Thibodeau, who was the number one defensive end last year, was supposed to just be a brute. I really wanted him to go to USC. You know, they're going to be playing Oregon. That's going to be a good game, like you said. It's going to be a deciding game. Oregon also has a true freshman quarterback they just decided is going to be starting. I mean, not Oregon. I'm sorry, Auburn. They also have a true freshman QB that's going to be starting. So that's, that's going to be a game, to keep keep an eye on. I mean, like I say, I don't know. I mean, Auburn got ranked 16. They were 8-5 last year, and they lost their starting quarterback, and I think they're starting running back too. I don't know. But yeah, they like I said, that'll be a good game to see. Out of Pac-12, like I said, I keep an eye on Arizona State, Oregon. Your guy mentioned Utah, another school you want to keep an eye on. Like I said, I'm an SC fan. I don't know which SC we're going to see this year. I do know that if we don't see at least if we don't get to the top 25 or get to the Pac-12, we might be getting a new coach next year. We might be getting a new coach before the end of the season. This is not normal for USC. So I mean, and I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't even mention to you guys the amount of talent recruit-wise that they have on this team. This is not, from a recruiting standpoint, this is not a team that should be not in the top 25. So there's literally no reason why they're not.
Well, but they're
going to be installing that air raid offense this year. So we're going to have to see how that comes in. But like I said, that's a question mark. I mean, I don't know. I mean, SC's always been a traditional offense school. So. But I mean, this is Pac-12 question marks, man. That's all I can say. A lot of question marks this year.
But the schedule's brutal for USC. I mean, they literally have the second hardest schedule in the country. I mean, it is. I mean, brutal. The one thing I say about schedules though is you got a lot of teams that play through their schedule. I mean, you could, some teams you could schedule them. 10 or 12 dogs, and they might have close games, but then you could schedule them 10 or 12 top 25 guys, and they might have close games. What I mean? Like I say, like I say, and their schedule, it's tough, but I mean, it's not super tough to where it's not guys that they're not used to playing. Like, like if they would have had like an Alabama or a Clemson on there, then I'd be like, oh man, that might be a game where they might, like Alabama did a couple of years ago, they might drop 50 on them. But I mean, if they're playing a Washington or Oregon, or whoever else you said in the Pac-12, I mean, those are teams that they're used to playing. So I mean, like I said, to me, like I said, this is just my opinion. When you're in your conference, unless you're just a bottom run team, I mean, these are teams that you're playing every year, so you're gonna have a better chance of beating them than another team that might only play them one time, because you're used to playing them, you're used to playing that coach, you know what they're going to be running, you know what they did last year, especially if they're bringing back the same people. So like I said, so it's they're going to have a tough strength of schedule, which most Pac-12 schools do, because they usually don't play D2 or D1 AA schools. But like I said, I mean, SC, like I said, it's a question mark. I mean. Like I said, I mean, they're good. Like I say, from a talent point of view, this is a school that's had, top 10, top 5 recruiting classes for the past couple of years. So they have the talent to be up there. Like I say, it wouldn't be like I can't even say Wisconsin, because Wisconsin's good, but I mean, it wouldn't be like another school that didn't have that talent. So like I'm saying, it's like I say, I mean, maybe the new offense might be a thing to flip the switch on them, but like I say, we'll see. Well, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
but
my thing is,
and I don't disagree with you when you say you're playing them every year, but they have to go at BYU, which they don't play every year. They play Stanford. They host them, which that's a great game. That's gonna be a great game, September 7th. But Stanford at BYU, they play Utah. Then they go at Washington, at Notre Dame. That 5-game stretch right there is as tough a 5-game stretch as anybody in the country is going to play this season, just based on rankings, right? Right? Because Stanford at 22nd, BYU hanging in there. BYU's close, they're not ranked. Utah's ranked 10th or 12th, depending on the thing.
14.
Washington about the same. Well, it depends on which where you're looking, right? Which rankings or which what are you? And then Notre Dame's 9th.
Overrated.
By some, but I don't disagree with that. But I mean, you've got to use some objective, right? But Stanford at BYU, Utah at Washington at Notre Dame. Now they do have a bye between Washington and Notre Dame, but that's. I mean, I understand your point about playing them every year and all that, but that is one tough stretch with a young football team. I mean, it's not like USC has everybody back. I mean, they've got 6 offensive players, 7, but they've got a new quarterback. I mean, so this is like a wow. This is going to be tough for them. I love USC. I hope they win that because I just love USC.
I mean,
I've always been a USC fan.
I'll say this: look at last year, Notre Dame was number 3 in the country when they played USC, and they only beat SC by a touchdown.
I guess, but they did beat them.
Like I said,
I mean,
that's something on these schools when they play each other. It's like it's different. Like I said, I wouldn't just say okay, Notre Dame is going to mutt them just because Notre Dame is number 10. Because I mean, like you said, what I said directly, Notre Dame, everybody's going to say they're overrated every year, which they damn well might be. So I mean, like I said, I kind of look at, like I said, I kind of look more at the players and the coaches, and the way that they played previously than especially preseason rankings because they can be kind of anywhere,
I get you, but I've got to use some numerical value to try to analyze this. But by the way, that game was at home. That game was at USC last year. The Notre Dame game you're talking about. This year it's at Notre Dame, which is arguably a pretty tough place. But I'm just saying they go at BYU, at Washington, at Notre Dame, three out of 4 games, and the home game in the middle of that is Utah, which is the best team in their half of the league. I don't know. My point is, you said, a non-top 25 ranking would be disappointing for USC. I get that it would be disappointing for USC fans, but looking at the schedule, and we haven't even mentioned Oregon at Arizona State at Cal. I mean, listen, I think if USC goes 8-4. It's a really good season. I mean, especially coming off of a 5-7 season where they dropped 5 of their last 6 games. I mean, this is not a team coming into the.
They weren't supposed to drop 5 of their last 6 games. Their coach almost.
That's the thing.
He goes 8-4 this year. He's gonna get fired.
He's gonna get fired. Like the thing is, man, like USC is USC, so you don't like expect like an Alabama to go 8-4 or something like that. And USC, the way that they had built their program ever since the early 2000s, you're not supposed to be fielding 5-7 and 6-6 seasons over at USC with the allure that you have there in Los Angeles, with the facilities that you have there in Los Angeles, and the money that's put in towards that program. You're not supposed to be going no 6-6 and 5-7. That's not what they do at USC. So they're supposed to be competing for, at the very least, conference championships and threatening to be a national championship contender. And
maybe they should replace Lynn Swan as athletic director because that
well, they should have been replaced him too. Right. They should have been replaced him too.
Yeah, he might do his job too. His job is that's okay. If they go 8-4. Like I said, there's going to be some changes. Like I said, Hilton. I mean, he probably should have got fired last year. Like I said,
he should have got fired last year.
That decision is going to be on Lynn Swan. He should have got rid of him. I mean, even
though he didn't
hire
never should have gotten rid of Ed Orgeron.
He was hired by Pat.
They
shouldn't have. Yep, you're right.
They never should have gotten rid of Ed Orgeron.
They shouldn't have. They should
have kept Ed because they replaced him with a guy that's not as good. I mean,
don't get me started.
I mean, I agree. Listen,
please.
I agree with everything you've said. I totally agree. I'm just saying that if Clay Helton expecting to keep his job this year, I think that the chances are slim and none, and I think Slim just left town. because if they go 9 and 3, that'll be one of the greatest coaching jobs in the history of the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's a miracle.
Right?
Yeah, that's a miracle.
And
They only have 11 returning starters and not really, many seniors in that starting lineup this year. So they're gonna be going through, a little bit of struggle, but going off of the thing with Arizona State, it's part of that whole thing with the Pac-12 having tough schedules. Yeah, they got some work to do, and they're coming in with a freshman quarterback. They got about 2 games to get them comfortable. Their O-line,
so
their O-line is full of seniors.
They have 1 game. The second game is Stanford, which brings one of the best defenses in the. Oh, Arizona State. Oh, yeah, Arizona State. Yeah. Arizona State's listen, if Arizona State beats Utah, I'm not expecting them to do that, but if they do, they've got a shot. But the trouble is, the teams in the South have to play. The North is so much better. The teams in the South are going to have a tough time putting out a really good conference. I think the winner of the South in the Pac-12, I'm just saying, it's probably going to have excuse me,
3 losses.
Utah's in the South, so
yeah. Well, they So you said, they have a chance to go undefeated, but anybody else in the South?
So I think, everybody else can have 2-3 losses, right? They're all playing for second place. But if they beat Utah, okay, let's say 2 of them beat Utah, then it's wide open, right? That's saying a lot. I don't know if they do that, but perhaps a couple of teams can pull an upset, and all of a sudden you've got a free-for-all in the South. And then you'll have a free-for-all in the North, because they're going to beat each other, so the Pac-12 gets left out of the party again, which I think is probably going to happen. I don't think a Pac-12 team is making it to the playoffs.
It's close. I keep on. Well, to me, it's going to come down between Washington and Oregon. Washington's right there. They're ranked number 13. Oregon's number 11. If they're both undefeated until that point, it'll
I gotta see what Jake Eason does over there at Washington, man. I gotta see. I gotta see what he's gonna do out there.
Yeah, it's a dude. He's supposed to be. He was supposed to be a star at where is he at? Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah. So we'll see. See what he can do in the Pac-12. They had Jake Browning last couple. They had him, for the past 4 years.
And the thing about it is, with Washington, their schedule, at least opening schedule, is not as bad as some of those other teams in the Pac-12. So, they could get themselves a little run going on until they faced Stanford, and that ain't until October. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So October is where they really get their run of the schedule. But other than that, it's pretty smooth sailing for them.
Yeah. Like I said, and that's just playing Stanford. They very well could be undefeated until they go and play Oregon or if they beat Oregon or Utah. And then their last game will be against Washington State, which before the title game. So that can very well decide who's going to win the North right there.
Yep. Unless they get tripped up by USC again, like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
that was their year to make it. Too. I think they were.
I want to touch on Washington real quick, because none of us has really mentioned Washington. Despite winning it 2 out of the last 3 years, and really getting hit in the polls. In a couple of the polls, they're actually preseason polls are ranked lower than Oregon. What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is there to make of this Washington team? In your
I
opinion?
picked Washington. I think I just told you. I think Washington's going to win the North, based on schedule, experience. I'm not sold on Oregon, but I mean, like you guys said, I mean, the thing about the Pac-12 is, you know, there are some really good mid-level teams, right? I mean, there's like Arizona State. You mentioned Arizona. USC has a lot of talent. Can they get coached up? All that kind of stuff. So I think there's some upsets in the making, going on there that are gonna kind of could put a monkey wrench into the wisdom of okay, here's where we are. Yeah, here's what okay, Utah's going to win it. Utah's going to win the South. Washington's going to win the North. It's going to come down to Washington, Oregon. Washington State. I mean, last year they made a big run. They barely they didn't quite make it. I mean, the Pac-12 is very compelling. Unfortunately, I don't know. One of us is on the West Coast. The rest of us are on the East Coast. We don't get to watch a lot of those games. And this was a big complaint I think Mike Leach made last year at Washington State. He was criticized for it, but he said, you guys don't put us on when people can see us, and so we get disadvantaged when it comes to the playoff committee. And I think there's some. If you look at the guys in the playoff committee, they're all kind of old. Are they up at 1:00 on Saturday night watching the football game? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, also, too, they got to change when they play some of these games. I mean, it's not like this is the 1960s where everybody doesn't have satellite. It's like or cable. It's like they could start making some of the Pac-10 games. They don't always have to be the night games.
Exactly.
You get the SEC games they're playing early Saturday morning. Then you get USC and Washington, all these other schools. They playing at 8:00. Pac-12 playing at 8:00 here, which is 11:00 you guys time or East Coast time.
Yeah,
so it's
I agree. I agreed with his criticism of the fact that they should get some parity. I mean, they could play at noon Eastern, noon Western time, noon Pacific time, and at least get some. But you rarely see. You hardly ever see a 3:30 Eastern time game that involves a Pac-12 school.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I don't know. I think that has to do with the TV deal too. They might need to renegotiate their TV deal, get one of these deals like the SEC or the Big 12 got or something. Because that's been the case for a while now.
Yeah, and that's unfair because they don't get the publicity and the notoriety. Because listen, as we've just talked about, the Pac-12 North, by my statistics, is the third toughest division in all of college football. That division deserves some love. I mean, there's going to be some really, really good football games in that division. You talk about Washington, Oregon, Washington State, Washington State, Oregon, Stanford. Right. I can name 8 or 9 games that are going to be extremely compelling and nationally significant.
Well, I think Oregon Stanford will probably be on Fox at around 3:30 or 4:00 on that. They're gonna try to feature that. I think they've had a couple of those feature games. Being
the Friday night game. They play Friday nights, Oregon, so that could actually be I'm looking at the dates of the games, but no, that's not going to be a Friday night game. But
that's not a Friday game.
Oregon Stanford is it's a Saturday game, But Oregon plays Colorado on a Friday night. That's not going to be very interesting at all. Most of the Oregon games are Friday night. Come on. Well, now Utah USC is a Friday night. That's a good game. I mean, that's a compelling. That's Utah USC. I mean, that's the first conference game for I think either of those teams. So that'll be a big opener. But that's a Friday night game. and I guess that's on ESPN. They run the party.
Yeah, SC's first games are Fresno to Stanford. They both at 7:30 here, so that's 10:30 Eastern time. Freaking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Right.
I can certainly sympathize, right, with a Mike Leach or a David Shaw, right, coach of Stanford, who says, we're kind of getting shafted here because nobody can see us, because 2/3 of the country. Now I'm Central Time, and but except for California, 2/3 of the population of the country is East, is actually more than that, is East Coast and Central Time, because that includes Chicago and East New York and all that stuff. So I can certainly understand that, because it's difficult, to get a national foothold when some of your top games are played, well into the morning. I happen to DVR them. I watch a lot. Matthew knows, and you guys know from listening to I watch 10 to 12 college football games a weekend, but I have to get very creative to do that. I'm watching I'm streaming some, I'm DVRing some, and that kind of thing. But I can certainly understand, and I think it's a valid. I guess it's a valid concern for the Pac-12 that they're not getting, the attention that they probably deserve.
Yeah,
and I think it hurts them.
It hurts them in the
perspective.
ratings, and the one thing that I take when I do look at the polls during the season, even when we get, like I said, about 5 games in, you can kind of tell who's who and what's what. I don't put a whole lot into the coaches poll. I know some people say, "Oh, it's their peers," but I can tell you this: the coaches don't watch anybody that they're not playing. They just don't. They really don't.
They've got an assistant. They've got an assistant.
Yeah.
Right.
So
they've got some assistant or intern or something turning their ballot form.
Quality.
Yeah,
it's a quality control specialist. That's what it is. So, all right. So we're gonna move on to the Southeastern Conference, to the SEC. So thank you guys for tuning in on Blog Talk Radio. If you're listening right now on Blog Talk, we're about 3 minutes from going into the overtime segment. If you're listening on Spreaker Live, you're good. So if you're on Blog Talk, head over to Spreaker. But we're thank you all for listening in. So right now, the SEC has the second most teams in the Associated Press, the AP Top 25. Alabama, for the first time in a while, comes in at second. Georgia, third. LSU, sixth. 8 is Florida. Texas A&M is 12th. Auburn is 16th. And that rounds out. I mean, Missouri isn't bowl eligible. They're not postseason eligible. They're on a suspension, but they would be ranked 26th. Mississippi State would be ranked 28th. So just kind of looking down this list here, if you just keep kind of nicking away down there, the Pac or the SEC is well represented in the top of the polls. Now, a lot of this changes throughout the season, and maybe they move up a bit because of some of the weakness in schedule.
90 seconds.
I know we've both talked about Alabama this year, and that we feel that they're definitely could be. We could see a loss on their schedule this year. Alabama returned 6 on offense, 6 on defense, and two of their most outstanding offensive linemen. They're losing, so I could see some problem along the offensive line here at the beginning of the season. They're just the Mississippi. Ole Miss is one of those teams that's kind of had their number, and that comes at the end of playing 5 straight weeks of football. Again, it's not out of the park, type scheduling. Duke, New Mexico State, which is an independent school, South Carolina at South Carolina. They got Southern Mississippi coming in, and then they play Ole Miss. So they got Texas A&M they have to go play the Aggies there at College Station, but it comes off of a bye
10
week.
seconds.
Then they got Tennessee and Arkansas at home. They got LSU at home. They go to Mississippi State. Then they got Western Carolina. Didn't know there was a Western Carolina. And then they have Auburn, and they go to Auburn this year. So they have a very, very weak schedule. Ole Miss is a game to watch because it's just over the recent history has been a loss for them or a very close game. Texas A&M, because it's in College Station, and Jimbo is always prepared. And then Auburn at the end of the year at Auburn. So, I think those are the three places where they're most susceptible to getting a loss this year. But where are you at? Where are you at in Alabama? Where do you see their loss at? You agreeing with that? I mean, they're slated in. The odds makers say 11 wins, right at 11 wins. So probably it's going to be the team out of the West, and probably going to be playing Georgia out of the East.
Well,
are you being mugged or building a house or what's that?
Well, the vulnerability
good?
for any team for the entire SEC is the West. I mean, it's incredibly deep. And you've got A&M's probably going to be as improved as anybody. Second year under Jimbo Fisher. This is, every year I kind of go, well, how can Alabama continue to do this? And the only reason they can this year is because their entire schedule, except for the SEC West, is embarrassingly weak. I mean, the two teams they play in the other half of the league are, South Carolina and Tennessee, arguably the two of the three, two of the four worst teams in the entire conference. I mean, arguably, but two of the five worst. And so, they don't play Georgia, they don't play Florida, they don't even play Missouri, right? So, they just have to contend with the West. Their non-conference schedule is a joke. Don't give me Duke. I mean, come on. Duke's a second-tier ACC team, especially after losing their quarterback Daniel Jones to the Giants. So they have to contend with the West, which the bottom of the West isn't very good. Ole Miss and Arkansas are outside the top 65, right, in all of college football. So if they have to get by Auburn, A&M, LSU. I think LSU is probably going to be the most problematic this year for Alabama. They blanked LSU last year, but LSU is going to be much better on offense this year, and so I think that's the game. Even though it is in Tuscaloosa, and I also see Alabama dropping a little bit defensively. They lost half their defensive line. They lost some linebackers, and they lost some very talented guys. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a problem for them. And going to College Station, A&M. So those are two problem games for them. But unfortunately, and it's unfortunate for the SEC, you can't have Alabama have a piece of cake schedule like that. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's an absolute piece of cake. It can't get any easier for them than it is, unless they played like Kentucky and Vanderbilt, on the other half of the league. And you contrast that. So let me give you a contrast of how tough some of these other teams' schedules are, right? Like Auburn has to play Georgia, on the other half of the league. There is no Georgia that Alabama has to contend with. Right? They're not contending with Georgia. But Auburn is having to play Georgia. We've talked about this before. The playoff committee doesn't set schedules. The NCAA doesn't set schedules. The conferences set the schedules. And I know it's kind of like, well, it's just the luck of the draw. Some teams are good this year. Some teams aren't very good. But, this inequity, and we've talked about this. I mean, the SEC and ACC have got to go to 9 games.
Yeah, I think they need them. If you're a Power 5 school, you need to have 9 conference games. Absolutely. There's no question about it. Because they can, look at the Pac-12. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten have legitimate gripes, 9 conference games apiece, and they schedule out of conference heavy. The Pac-12 goes above and beyond. They said anywhere, anytime. Well, we don't care. We're the West Coast. We do it like that. And that's and the Pac-12 is always kind of taking those risks, but they're also having to travel more. They're not getting seen as much, so they are willing to go and travel so they can get more observed. Because again, like we were just talking, in the last segment, was they struggle with visibility. The SEC doesn't struggle with visibility. I mean, the SEC gets the most eyes on it for, dedicated college football fans, even though the Big Ten technically does get the most eyes on it because they have, I think it's 9 out of the top 12 markets in the Big Ten network, especially with ESPN and Fox both owning in on rights for the Big Ten network. So it's bananas. So, I don't think. Here's the thing: is
Auburn,
hold on a second.
I
don't think that college football teams can continue this. No. Northwestern coast of Alaska State College, because it's coming down to this: schools are struggling to get students in, and that's losing revenue. Alabama. They have reduced. They reduced the stadium size this year. Nebraska did it last year. Some of it they say they're just making it bigger, so they're making it more comfortable. So they throw a convenience on there. But when you're taking off several hundred seats for convenience, you also know that because there's a risk of not selling those tickets because if South Carolina West Coast College of Robert E. Lee is the school that you're playing against, then it's just tough to sit back and fathom how is this school really impacting this, because obviously, as much as I say these preseason conference rankings can in some way alter or affect how we view these teams throughout the year, even though the committee does do their own set of rankings. It's having an easier schedule clearly in the most profound way sets them up for such a significant advantage. They're in the richest area for recruiting talent. And then on top of that, they play the weakest schedules outside the ACC. Literally there are, group of 5 or FBS schools, smaller schools, Sunbelt schools, stuff like that play tougher. Like I think it was Western Michigan. We didn't go over any of those schools, but there's MAC schools that actually had a tougher ACC schedule than ACC schools. So it's just the scheduling is so important, and I think that the NCAA does need to step in and say, hey, major conferences or the committee at least saying, hey, you need to schedule 9 conference games for us to consider you here. Who you're playing on those non-conference schedules, it matters. And, last year was that perfect opportunity. It's been the last couple years, perfect opportunity to sit back and say, well, you have a weak schedule. You need to have tougher games. If the competition that we're looking at, if it's a 3-4 loss team and they've played strong competition, those are higher quality wins. And I know it harkens back to the days of the BCS, but I think that's the one thing with the BCS it kind of got right, because it did play into consideration of the strength of your schedule. I don't know that the committee, because I haven't seen it, that they really punish Alabama or Georgia or any of these schools that just have this cupcake, put out the local high school team or the closest community college so we can, empower the community and have a tax write-off. I just don't see how this can continue. And we look at the wins, and we look at their claims to titles and stuff as legitimate when they're not taking the time to put any quality out there. And I hope the fans really realize that, hey, Nick, when you guys play Western Carolina the second to last week, right there by Thanksgiving, we're not coming. We're going home. Even if we're in Alabama, we'll watch that on TV maybe. We'll see. When on September 7th, New Mexico State, no, I'm good. I'll pass. We'll watch it on TV maybe. I don't know. I hope the fans decide to do that, because that's really the only way that and the committee stepping up to say something is really the only way that we're going to be able to get some leveling out in the schedules. So,
but let me give you a really. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Matthew,
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I muted you because
okay.
There seems to be construction going on in the background or something. I don't know what it was, so I muted your mic. That's why.
Oh, okay. I'm just sitting here. Okay, so let me give you the example of the disparity within the SEC of the scheduling, which is important with the amount of money that's involved in the sport right now. So Auburn plays Oregon. They play at Florida, and they play Georgia. So the comparable schedule for Alabama is Duke, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Now, that's an inequity that is enormous, right? So Auburn plays the 3rd and 5th ranked teams in the non-division, and a top 10 team by some counts, maybe 12, Oregon, right? Alabama plays nothing of the sort. It's not even close to what. So the inequity in the schedule itself. So Auburn, on average, plays teams ranked 13 spots higher, better than Alabama does on average every game. So, it's like, the conferences themselves are, because, they set up these situations in the SEC where every team plays one team from the other half of the league every year. So Alabama's team is Tennessee's. Auburn's is Georgia's. Well, that's unfair to both of those to both those programs, Auburn and Georgia's program, right? Now, when Tennessee was really good, maybe that was a disadvantage to Alabama. I don't know. But right now, so they don't rotate. They only rotate one team. Okay? And so Arkansas is Missouri. And they rotate, one of the teams. And so it's an inequity because Auburn having to play Georgia every season is unfair. It's unfair to both of those teams, actually. And then this year, Auburn has to play Georgia and Florida. But Auburn has to play the top two ranked teams in the East. Well, there's no way they're running the table. I mean, okay, maybe they can. I dare say it. The chances are limited. That they do that. Okay, or it's a tough sell. Georgia, of course, plays Auburn and Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Alabama's got nothing like that. And so I agree with you. I think the committee, and I mean, and let's not stop there. Florida has their own difficult schedule, right? Florida plays at LSU. In the western half of the league, they play at LSU, and they play Auburn, and they open against Miami. So, I would love to say Alabama's not going to win the SEC this year, and I would love to say Alabama's not going to be in the playoffs. But based on the inequity of the scheduling alone, you got to put Alabama and Clemson at the top of the list because their schedules are so easy. Clemson just has to get by A&M, which it's at Clemson. I mean, so chances are they get by A&M. After that, there's nothing left. Now that just happens to be because the ACC is down, of course. But I agree with you. We are in agreement on something which we aren't usually in agreement on, but we're in agreement on this. Is somebody has to step in and start looking at these schedules because there's too much at stake. There's too much money at stake, right? For Auburn to have to play Florida and Georgia, and Alabama gets to skate, that's not right. And
they start off with Oregon.
Now you say Missouri's not bowl eligible, but Missouri's not bowl eligible, but they can certainly make it. They can certainly have a hand in what happens in the conference, right?
Yeah.
Missouri plays Alabama and Missouri plays Arkansas and Ole Miss, the two bottom feeders in the West. That's who Missouri plays on their half of the non-division schedule in the SEC. Not to mention the fact that Missouri plays nobody in the non-conference either. So you talk about a team that if they were
West Virginia,
but
we don't know what West Virginia is going to be this year. We don't know if they're going to be.
So this is a team.
A step back. How much of a step back we're going to get?
West Virginia's down. We know that, right?
Well, we think.
No, we're not going to get that. So
you're not going to give them any love? I mean, you didn't when we covered it 2 weeks ago. But I'm just saying, in hindsight.
Now Missouri. Now Missouri does have to play. Now, okay, because they're in the SEC East, they do have to play. Georgia and Florida and Tennessee but South Carolina, whatever. And by the way, poor South Carolina. They have the same deal. They play Texas A&M and who else does South Carolina play? South Carolina plays Texas A&M,
Clemson,
and
in the outer schedule they play Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, Alabama.
Alabama.
At
South
home.
Carolina is one of three teams that plays. So South Carolina has to play the top two teams in the country, Alabama, Clemson, right? And they play at Texas A&M as their other as the West, the non-division game.
They do have Appalachian
and then
State.
They play Georgia.
And that's not a knock
I
at
know,
them.
but they all
they
have
could
one of those.
very much lose to Appalachian State.
Appalachian State's not a free pass, but that Appalachian State's an FBS school,
and they have a new.
That's
coach.
not an FCS school. That's an FBS.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're a bowl team. So, and they start up at North Carolina. South Carolina plays at North Carolina to start the season. So South Carolina has no prayer, none, right? Because they play Alabama and Clemson, top two teams in the country. A&M also plays the top two teams in the country. But they also play North Carolina, which they're down, but we don't know how far down they're going to be because Mac Brown's back at head coach in North Carolina, so they might be better.
What do you think the line for the South Carolina Appalachian State game will be? I mean, just throw it out there. I think it's probably going to be like -6 South Carolina. I don't think it's going to be that big of a line. What do you think?
Well, it's late in the season. I mean, Appalachian State could be 9-1 or something coming in that game. We don't know.
I mean Vegas has them.
It could be pretty doggone close.
At 9 on the over/under.
I mean, South Carolina's going to be. Yeah. Now, South Carolina. Oh my gosh, what an end of the season, right? They play at A&M, and then they have a week off, and then they play Clemson. So they end their season with 1 and 2 teams two really tough teams. But I'm looking at South Carolina's schedule. They're probably going to be 4 and 5, maybe coming into Appalachian State. That's if they have a pretty good season because they've got Alabama, Missouri, Georgia, Florida. I mean, they're probably going to beat North Carolina. They'll beat Charleston Southern. They'll lose to Alabama. They'll probably lose to Missouri, beat Kentucky, lose to Georgia, lose to Florida. Tennessee's a toss-up. Vanderbilt, they probably win. So maybe they'll be 5 and 4. Appalachian State's probably going to be 8-1 or something like that, right?
Yeah,
I don't
very
know.
well could be.
The Vegas line will have South Carolina as a favorite. I agree with you. It's going to be less than a touchdown. I think it would be less than a touchdown.
-6, -5, something like that.
Unless South Carolina has pulled some kind of humongous upset, right, against Alabama, Georgia, or Florida. I mean, I'm going to be at the South Carolina Tennessee game in Knoxville. My daughter goes to the University of Tennessee, and I will be at that game.
You let her?
And so I'll give you. Huh?
You allow that?
Yeah, she has friends at Tennessee. So she got me tickets. We're going to the game.
Well, there you go.
So I'll get to experience.
I got tickets.
I'll get to experience the stadium. I go to most of the. We'll probably be going to all the Arkansas games this year. My wife, at her position, has entertains people, and so we have tickets in the club level, and so that'll be nice. South Club. But so I'll see that game live. I'll see some of the Arkansas games live. I may catch a Virginia Tech game at Lane Stadium this year. There, but South Carolina, either the line might not be that big. They'll probably beat them unless they're just beaten up. I mean, that schedule is brutal. And by the way, I wanted to make a note that the toughest conference based on rankings, based on power rankings. Okay, I've got to give a caveat, right? The two toughest divisions in college football are the SEC and the SEC East and the SEC West. Now, their schedules aren't the toughest, okay? But their conference schedules are the toughest.
Yeah.
So, the case the SEC makes is that we don't want to go to 9 games because our conference is so tough just by itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's borne out by the statistics, by the way. I don't buy it. I don't agree with it. I think they got to go 9 games. Okay? And they also have to stop this foolishness of having Auburn play Georgia every year and Missouri gets to play Arkansas every year. Because that's, I mean,
rubbish.
That's unfair, right? Because Georgia gets Auburn and Missouri gets Arkansas, and they're playing the same division, and they're competing for a title. You're right. That's asinine. Rotate the schedules, let them fall where they may. I can buy that, right? But don't give one team a free pass, right? And another team have to play through a very like Kentucky gets Vanderbilt every year. Well, hell, Kentucky gets Mississippi State every year, or Mississippi State gets Kentucky every year. Well, how unfair is that, right? Right?
Yeah.
Mississippi State gets Kentucky every year.
Well, that's the thing is if you go by the rivalry games, it's tough. You know, you can't really pick who your rival is. Historically you have this rival, that's your rival. You know, like for years, Nebraska, Colorado. You know, that was the rivalry game at the end of the year, and then we had one. I know Iowa State. What was it? Kansas State and Missouri always try to call those rivalry games, but Nebraska always won the most of all of those. Kansas they were just happy that somebody would let them play, which should change this year with Les Miles. And, you know, they have, by the way, just for those of you tuning in, just a little bit of news, HBO has actually reached out to several colleges to put together a Hard Knocks college version. Alabama is one of the schools that is in negotiation. Washington State and Mike Leach have already agreed. I forget off the top of my head who the other two ones.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Mike Leach
that's a Mike Leach thing, right? That doesn't surprise me. And I'll watch that, by the way.
And he's an awesome follow on Twitter, by the way.
But I'll watch a Mike Leach, right? I'll watch a Mike Leach show, right? I mean, that guy's entertaining as hell. I mean, he's just really entertaining.
He's a pirate enthusiast.
Cool, right?
A pirate enthusiast.
Yeah, I love.
Like, how isn't he coaching USF? How didn't they say we need Mike Leach? He's a pirate enthusiast. Gasparilla. It's a match made in heaven. You know.
Well, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Tampa Bay. I mean, if Cliff Kingsbury can coach the Cardinals, Mike Leach can coach the Buccaneers, right? I mean, come on. Right? I mean, come on. Why not? You know, put the eye patch on. All right, maybe. You know, can you see Mike Leach with that?
No, I could see him doing it.
The guy's awesome. I
like the current coach.
So,
I think that they should stick with him as long as they can until he decides to retire again.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, there's no way that Washington State's given up, especially after last season. I mean, they had a great year last year, right?
Yeah.
Last couple of years. No, there's no way. Washington. Mike Leach is to Washington State what Frank Beamer was to Virginia Tech, or what Bill Snyder was to Kansas State, right?
Now, yes.
I mean, he may never win a national championship,
but it doesn't matter.
And he may never win a you know, and he's going to be competitive.
He has to make them relevant somehow.
Famous. Yeah. Oh yeah. So there's no way that they're getting. I mean, he's put that program on the map. He's going to keep them on the map as long as he's there. And why would he go anywhere else? I mean, it's like Gundy at Oklahoma State. Why would you go anywhere else? Your expectations are, nobody's expecting you to win a national championship. I mean, Oklahoma, it's different, right? They expect that. They demand it. Bob Stoops had to get out because the pressure was too much. These guys at Oklahoma State, Washington State, and Virginia Tech, and some of these other schools, that expectation. Iowa State, right? Kansas State.
Yep.
The expectation is, wow, if you get us to a bowl game every year and you win, you're gold. Frank Beamer retired a god at Virginia Tech, and they got to one national championship game. That fan base isn't expecting that. They're expecting, good teams, bowl teams, competitiveness.
And you know what?
Right?
I appreciate fan bases that, that can feel that thrill once every 6 years that they are, we're ranked kind of high. We have a really good squad, but know that they're average and they're fine with, just enjoying the average team that they get, and they pull off some wins here and there, And, Washington State probably is not going to ever win a national title with the way things are right now. It would be tough to see. But they're going to be competitive. They're going to give some teams some headaches. They get guys in there that are quarterbacks that are looking to get into the league. Also, they're going to compete in the North just simply because of the coach that they have and the way that their system works. So it's especially NFL moving towards more of that style of offense. So, but back to the SEC,
and they play and they play one of the just one more thing about Washington State. They play in one of the smallest stadiums in the country. So they're not trying to put 80,000 people in. I think they have 38,000 seat stadium or something like that, if it's that. And so, but back to the SEC, you're right. Back to the SEC. I'd like to say Alabama will not win the SEC West, but when I look at the other schools that could unseat them, they might lose a game. Like Auburn might beat them, or LSU might beat them, but somebody else is going to beat those guys because their schedule's tougher.
Yeah.
So if I was to pick a school, right? If I was to pick a school that had the best chance to unseat Alabama right now, I would have to pick. I say A&M only because they host Alabama, and if you've never been, to a football game at A&M, it is one intimidating place. It is crazy good. If you can ever get there, I would highly recommend it. I went there a few years ago, and it was amazing. A&M plays South Carolina. A&M has to play at Georgia. A&M has to play at Georgia and at LSU to end the season. I mean, what kind of crazy, moronic scheduling is that, Matthew? That is terrible. I mean, think about that. How hard that is to go at Georgia, at LSU to finish the season. And A&M plays Clemson. But, if A&M beats Alabama, are they going to be able to actually finish that off? I don't think so. I think their schedule's too tough. LSU, if they beat Alabama at Alabama, they have a shot, okay, but they still they'll have to play Florida before that, and so they play Florida and Vanderbilt. So I've got to give LSU the nod just because of the scheduling perspective, but I think this might be and not that Alabama won't win the league, and they may. But I think because of how good the SEC is this year, this might be the year, and I think I will predict, this is probably going to be the year that the SEC gets left out. Because I think Utah has a good chance, as we discussed earlier, right, with their schedule.
Running the table.
They could be the first. They could run the table. and they'll get in because the schedule's just hard enough that they would get in if they ran the table.
Well, that's the thing. So Alabama would have to lose in the season and then lose the SEC championship against probably like a Georgia team that has two losses.
The problem with Utah is, they'd have to beat a Washington or Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, to do that. And I think Utah might have to run the table in order to get there, right? I don't think their schedule's hard enough that
I disagree. I guarantee you an SEC team is in. They don't get left out this year because I just looking at the Big 12 schedule, nobody's going undefeated.
Here's the question. Well, here's the question though. Then here's the question. Can they get in with 2 losses?
Who? A Pac-12 team?
The SEC champion. Can the SEC champion? No. Can the SEC champion get into the playoffs with 2 losses?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. Because that's the thing. Here's why. Because there's not going to be a Big Ten team that doesn't have 1 or 2 losses. I mean, hell, I got Ohio State, which is the highest ranked team right now in the Big Ten. I have them with 3 losses this season. Michigan's probably going to lose 2. One of them could be the Big Ten championship game. You could have a 9-3.
Okay, so
you could have a 9-3 Big 12 champion, and the winner have a worse record than the team that they beat. You could have 9-3 Nebraska beat 10-2 Michigan. I'm just saying you're not getting anybody in. You're not a 2-loss Michigan is not going to get in. A Pac-12 team that's not undefeated conference champion is not going to get in. You're probably going to end up with Georgia, Alabama in again, playing against conference champion Clemson, and then we're probably going to look at the Oklahoma in. So we're probably looking at Clemson, Georgia. Can they run the table?
Oklahoma run the table?
Well, that's the thing is I think 1-loss Oklahoma does get in. Because they have a tough schedule.
Well, they have a lot.
They could. I mean, that's the crazy thing about Oklahoma. Every year or two, they find out a way to either lose or almost lose to somebody they shouldn't. 2 years ago, it was Iowa State. Campbell got a contract.
Well, last year was Texas.
Last year was Texas.
They shouldn't have lost to Texas last year.
So I'm saying.
They shouldn't have. Texas wasn't. Right. Okay. So when you look at the landscape, I think we're kind of – so, okay, let's go back to SEC a second. SEC East, Georgia?
Yeah, Georgia, in a landslide. I know.
Yeah,
I know Florida fans, they're hype. Listen, I don't have confidence in Felipe Franks or anybody else that they brought in behind him. I really don't. Has he, because here's the thing is, their schedule, I think the Miami game's going to be tough, but Florida wins against Miami. I think it's a blowout against Kentucky or against UT Martin, but Kentucky, Tennessee are probably going to be close, tough games. I think Tennessee's going to have a little bit more of a bounce back year. And Florida's probably going to be their marquee win this year, even though it's in the swamp. But that's what happened the last time they beat them. Auburn, they got them at home, but that's their homecoming. Tennessee. They got soft schedules in between. South Carolina's at South Carolina. I guarantee they're losing in Death Valley against LSU. Then they have Georgia at home, which is their. They got that marked as that's their. I think that's their. No, it's an away. It's in Jacksonville.
Florida, Georgia's in Jacksonville. That's always in Jacksonville.
Still a home game.
It's not a home game. Well, no, it's a neutral game. They split that stadium 50-50. It's an absolute neutral site game. It's a little bit closer to. It's obviously closer to Gainesville, but they split the seats. That's a 50-50, right down the middle. You watch. It's But the reason that I'm still going with Georgia is because even though Georgia has a really tough non-division schedule, like they play, who they play is A&M and Auburn. Florida's is harder because they play Alabama, they play LSU, and Auburn. So this is why I think the SEC East winner might end up with 2 losses.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: I'm saying Georgia wins it, right? Or Missouri spoils the party. One of the two.
Missouri's going to be a real spoiler here.
I'm telling you,
they have nothing to lose.
This Missouri, okay, not only did they get Kelly Bryant, but they also had the TCU transferring as the backup. I'm telling you, one of the first, they have. I'm telling people, listen. They have Travoy Wilson Sims. They're offensive. They're left guard or right guard. He's a first-round pick. He can pass block and they can run. He's going to be a first-round pick. I guarantee it. And that this offense is going to be potent.
Yeah,
they have
and by the way,
running backs by committee that 1-2 punch of Crockett and Roundtree, man.
And they have two guaranteed wins against the West. They're playing Ole Miss and they're playing Arkansas. They have 2 guaranteed wins against the West.
What did you think of Jonathan Nance when he was at Arkansas? The wide receiver.
Sorry, you broke up there. What?
Jonathan Nance, wide receiver from Arkansas. Do you remember him last year?
Yeah.
I mean, he transferred there. So they have speed.
Yeah, so you look at you look at Missouri on paper and you say, oh, they only return 7 offensive starters. But if you add in Kelly Bryant and Jonathan Nance, who were starters at their prior schools, right?
Yeah, it's like 13.
They have 9 returning. They have 9 returning starters on offense, right? Because you kind of have to say, Bryant and Nance, they started. They're graduate transfers, right? And so, listen, Missouri, just because they're not going to be beaten up like these other teams are going to be beaten up because their schedule's weak and their non-conference schedule's a joke. At Wyoming, West Virginia, Southeast Missouri State, which is an FCS school, okay, and Troy, and FBS. So, okay, West Virginia. But West Virginia's down and they host them. They're going to scorch West Virginia. West Virginia's defense is so bad. They're probably going to put up 60 on West Virginia, right?
I wouldn't give them that, but
and so this is going to be a formidable team. I mean, it is, and they just don't play anybody, and they get Georgia, Florida late. They play Georgia and Florida in November, back to back, which will be their first really big test. So, they could catch Georgia. I mean, it's one of those weird scheduling things. They're going to catch Georgia right after the Florida game. So this is going to be kind of crazy,
Let me
for a team that
Let me bring James back in here. What is your take on the SEC here? How do you see the East wrapping up?
The East, I got Georgia taking it. I'm looking at Tennessee and that's almost looking like another disappointing season for Tennessee. They have the most returning starters in the conference, but they've had that before and still had a disappointing season. So I don't really, buy too much into Tennessee having, that many returning starters that they have. They have 16 coming back with pretty much the whole offense coming back. But if anything, LSU
but that was
should have this
a
shot.
bad offense, though. But that offense was ranked like 115th or something. I mean, you just bring back a bunch of bad guys, right?
Yeah, a bunch of bad guys. So I don't know how bad they are this year, but that last time that was just horrible. But LSU, has the chance this year to, basically take it. I mean, their schedule is, fairly tough this year. Not necessarily as tough as I think that year that they, pretty much got to the national championship game and then lost to Alabama 21-0. But, they do have to go to Texas on September 7th. But after that, they should pretty much have it fairly smooth sailing until they get back at those Gators on October 12th. And then, they have Florida and Auburn at home. So that's the thing about it. And then, like you said, Alabama is, not as good as they have been in the past few years, or as deep as they have been in the past few years. So, if they're able to get through that, they should be, pretty much fine until that final game against Texas A&M. So I'm looking at LSU coming out in the SEC West.
I agree with you, James. I agree with you. I like LSU. But they got to beat Alabama at Alabama. And if they do that, then they got kind of a game in hand, right? They can lose to either Auburn or to Florida and still win the West.
And I think the key to LSU,
they'll have the tiebreaker on Alabama.
LSU really moving forward is the improvement of Joe Burrow. I think that quarterback position has really been the bugaboo for LSU for years, and I think his improvement
almost
over the spring is really what's going to set them over the top.
Hey, hold on. Could y'all excuse me real quick? Hey, I'm over here having a press conference. Oh, not bad.
Thanks, Ed.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Thank you, Ed. I think Ed Orgeron just joined the show.
Cookies.
I like that. Nice. I like that. I like that.
We have a good team this year, and we should be able to have a cycling defense and all of that. Go Tigers.
And hey, I'm on the phone here. I'm
on the phone here.
Nice.
Having a press
nice touch. That was really funny too. That was a hilarious bit. That soundbite. That was so great. But for people that don't realize, Ed Orgeron was on the phone. His players were making noise or something.
That was actual press. They were doing the thing in the practice facility, and he was interviewing with a few guys, and they were making, I guess, too much noise for him.
Yeah, and he was like, shut up. That was great. So I like LSU. I like them defensively. But man, Alabama has caught a real break on the schedule this year. I mean, a true break, because the other teams chasing them have, all have to play, tougher teams on the other side of the draw. But all it takes is and LSU has to play Alabama, at Alabama, and Auburn is just kind of screwed. I mean, their schedule is so difficult. Not the non-conference. I'm talking about just the way the conference stuff matched up. But Yeah, I like LSU. I like LSU, Georgia. I agree with you, James. We don't usually agree on very much, but I'll agree with you there. But
see,
so who
I
do you
like
this weekend?
LSU.
Miami, Florida.
Like I said, I like LSU to
Come
be
on,
the
man.
team
You
to
think,
do
you
it.
think
But
I'm gonna ever pick? You think I'm gonna ever pick the Gators over anybody? Come on, man.
well,
no,
I did.
no, I don't think so.
Can't
I
all
don't think so.
Did you see my comments
I think if
on Stevie's post?
I think if Florida was playing, North Christian High School, you would probably, pick North Christian High School over Florida. But
my thing is Florida going to actually field the team because ain't like half the teams suspended?
But that's every year. That's just,
Wait a second. You're telling me that Miami's a bunch of choir boys? Is that what you're
Nah, I know that,
Nah.
but this ain't the 1990s.
No, it certainly isn't. No, it certainly isn't. In a lot of ways, in Miami. Is Miami overrated? Are they a top 25 team?
No. That was easy.
Right now, no.
No.
I mean, they have don't they have they have a freshman starter because your boy that transferred from Ohio State couldn't even get the starting job. I'm like, come on, man. So
yeah, I know.
Come on, man. It's like he's Ohio State because he couldn't get in because you had who did they have there before? That's with the Redskins now. Yeah,
Hawkins.
Who's their rookie now?
Hawkins.
Yeah, Dwayne Haskins.
Oh, Haskins.
Haskins.
Haskins. Yeah,
Right.
Dwayne
That's your
Haskins.
team,
So,
Kev.
Dwayne
step up,
Haskins
man.
leaves. Dwayne Haskins leaves. Tate Martell's supposed to have that job on lock. Nope. So he transfers to Miami, gets an exemption to be in Miami to be eligible for this year, and he still can't get the starting job in Miami. Come on.
So let me ask you this: you weren't honest. You weren't on with us for the ACC show. So, is Miami better than Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech has always been tough in the ACC every single year. So, I mean, my thing with Virginia Tech is, it's not like, they have very high expectations every single year. And the thing is that
no question. Rough season
last year.
Rough season. Okay.
But
a lot of transfer.
I mean, but here's the thing. Look at Virginia Tech's schedule this year.
Oh, is that a joke? Is that the biggest? That's like the biggest joke in college football. Now, I will say this: what happened to Virginia Tech, and I was talking to my sister about this. She's a season ticket holder at Tech, and I'm an alumnus. Everybody knows I'm a Hokie. So, when East Carolina didn't reschedule the game with Tech last year, Tech ended the series with East Carolina, which left them with an open date this year, which they were only able to fill with an FCS school. So their schedule is a joke. They play two FCS schools, Furman and Rhode Island, which is a joke. And they play Boston College and
they got to get
somebody else.
Dominion back, though.
Old Dominion, yeah, the revenge game, yeah, that's going to be awesome. And then they play, and then their other non-conference game is against Notre Dame. So they do travel to Notre Dame. But
let me ask you this:
in the league,
do the Hokies cover that game?
Worst teams, they get the two worst teams. They get the two worst teams in the Atlantic. They get Wake Forest, and they get the two worst teams in the other half of the league. So, listen, if Tech's going to do anything with a and Boston College, and Wake Forest. That's who they play in the other half of the league. So they get 2 of the 3 worst teams. So if they're ever going to do anything, right? And plus this is Foster's last year as defensive coordinator. They returned 9 starters on defense. This could be listen, if Virginia Tech doesn't go 10-2, they kind of suck because the schedule is just ridiculously easy. They don't play Clemson, they don't play Florida State, they don't play Louisville, they don't play they don't play anybody, right? And the Coastal, it's an embarrassment. I mean, Miami's like preseason 20th or something, but we all know they're not that good. And so, if that's the game, the Miami Virginia Tech game is the conference. I mean, it's the division, right? The winner of that game is going to probably going to win the division. And who knows? But oh my gosh, you're right. It's laughable, that Virginia Tech schedule. It is like, I don't know who set this up. Okay. So I ranked the non-conference schedules of all of the Power 5 conference teams. Virginia Tech is 52nd out of 64.
Hey, not to cut you off, but
the one.
I wanted to get your take on.
And by the way,
BYU.
Nebraska's worse.
Is it?
Nebraska's worse. Nebraska's worse, Matthew. Yes, it's 54th out of 64.
Well, we got like a minute left
that to you.
in the show. I just wanted to get the independent schools. I mean, Notre Dame, are they a team that can do the preseason rank right now at 9? Are they somebody that can make a splash again this year? I mean, I'm going to say no. I just think their schedule's too heavy. I mean, you talk about the Pac-12 schedule's heavy. I mean, they have a heavyweight schedule. I don't know if I'm putting a ton into Ian Book, the junior. They have coming back at quarterback. I like the receiving core.
Well, let me just say this, Matthew. Let me just say this.
I like their offensive line.
If you say the Big Ten, I know. But if you say the Big Ten champion might have 2 losses, and you say the SEC champion might have 2 losses, and you say Clemson's going to win the ACC, which I think is pretty much the consensus, and you say the Pac-12 champion could have at least 1 loss, and you say the Big 12 champ, let's say Oklahoma runs the table, there is room for Notre Dame in that equation, because you've got 2 or 3 conferences with a 2-loss champion.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if the SEC is a 1-loss champion and the Big Ten is a 1-loss champion, there's no way Notre Dame's getting in it because their schedule is just too hard.
Well, here's the thing: is I think that we're looking at potentially 3 losses for them. Georgia, I give them a loss there. Virginia's going to be a close game. I want to see what Virginia can do. It's a winnable game, I think, for Virginia, and I think they lose at Michigan. So that's looking at potentially 3 losses. But I think they lose to Georgia and Michigan on the road.
And they still have Virginia Tech and a couple others. I mean, they've got some other tough games. I mean, it's not.
That's the thing. Is like
they've got.
I favored Virginia a little bit more than Tech. But the thing is, I really like Ryan Willis.
What about this?
I really like Ryan Willis.
Game? What about the Stanford game?
I don't know about Stanford.
And you got Stanford.
I didn't talk much about them tonight because I'm just not enamored with Stanford. I really am not. I had to say overrated.
Yeah,
teams.
screw Stanford. Come on, man.
I think
Stanford's always overrated.
I think Stanford's the overrated team for me. They really are. outside of the quarterback position, there's not. Costello. I mean, that's really the guy.
You just don't like those boring white uniforms and all that stuff. And not,
you mean the ones that look exactly like Nebraska?
They're just not glamorous enough for you.
The ones that look exactly like
Nebraska?
Nebraska?
Not glamorous enough.
Oh, by the way, Nebraska's black shirt alternate
boring.
jerseys are sick. So, but that's going to end the show for us this week. Thank you all for tuning in here to the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. Same time next week, but we'll actually talk about games that were played.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
So thank you all over on Spreaker who get to listen in after the show cuts off on Blog Talk Radio. Continue to follow us here on Spreaker. Subscribe, follow, like, share, heart, all that good stuff. Comment. We love comments. Obviously, we make 3 hours worth of comments. Please share your own comments. We appreciate it. But it's all we have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for joining in and tuning in and being a part of this show. We appreciate it. I'm out.